Hey, welcome to Stuff to Blow Your Mind Trailer Talk. My name is Robert Lamb.
And I'm Christian Sager.
And I'm Joe McCormick, and we're the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast in the How Stuff Works network. This is not the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. This is Trailer Talk, where we come on here and talk about some of our favorite and least favorite movies related to recent episodes of the show. Now, this week, sort of rounding out the end of our Halloween October season, you guys had an episode on Creepypasta, right?
That's right. Tuesday's episode was Cute versus Monsters, and then Thursday was Creepypasta 4, the fourth installment in our ongoing series where we take bits of creepypasta from the internet and then try to figure out what kind of science is here. What can we discuss scientifically, culturally, historically that lines up with the pasta?
We can't help ourselves, and the audience keeps asking for it, which is probably you out there. If you like creepypastas, I'm imagining that you like these episodes. If you don't know what a creepypasta is, I guess we can quickly explain it.
Yeah, walk them through it.
So creepypasta is like a copy and paste text meme that developed in the early 2000s along the lines of the copy pasta idea. You would drop them into emails or on message boards or something like that. But these were basically horror stories that were written from the first-person point of view as if they actually happened to the person writing them. And they've become so popular that there's entire sites that curate them now. They really peaked, I'd say, around 2010. So much so that there's actually a TV show right now on the Sci-Fi Network. What is it called? Channel Zero.
Yes, that's the one.
Channel Zero, that is like an anthology show that takes different creepypastas and adapts them to television.
So let me ask you guys, basically these are great works of literature, right?
Some are, you would be surprised at how great some of them are.
I read one that was really scary one time. It was about a secret television show that only kids could
That's
see.
the one that they made the TV show about.
Yeah,
Kendall Cove.
Yeah, that was pretty scary. All the others I've looked at were unreadable.
Well, the thing is they vary drastically. So some are aspiring more towards the shape and the form of narrative. Right. They're trying to be a short horror story, and they succeed or fail to varying degrees. Others are more like just they go after a Wikipedia article style form, or it's just a very brief account of something that happened. Like the pure creepypasta, I feel, is it's essentially some copy that one would paste onto a message board or in an email and say, hey, I read this thing the other day about this lady who, had worms growing in her brain or something. There's more to it than that usually. But
Slender
it's just,
Man or what's his name? Smilin' Jeff?
Smilin' Joe?
I can't remember what
Jeff
his
the
name
Killer.
is. Jeff the Killer.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the one that doesn't like capital letters, right?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
That's the one that also has a viral image with it. So sometimes it's just a viral image or idea that resonates with people.
So basically, the way we've been doing this for the last, and these episodes have been going on for about 3 years now, is we take a couple different creepypastas, we look at them, and we say, is there any scientific possibility to some of these things? How can we unwrap that? It gives us an excuse to do kind of a grab bag episode on weird science.
Yeah.
So we've covered the Jeff the Killer one in the past, and I think for that one we covered like the science of smiling and like the effect of fake smiling on other people.
Or losing your eyelids.
Yes, right, that's another factor of his. But for this one, we grabbed just kind of random ones from all over the place, and each of us took 3.
Yeah. Or 2, I think.
Oh, was it only 2?
I think it was only 2.
Yeah.
You took a couple of SCP.
I did.
Sort of, weird sci-fi related ones from that website. And I took a pair that, one is in particular, is a piece of creepypasta that ties in with pre-existing urban legends. And another is another is a piece of not quite creepypasta that sprang up around the same time as creepypasta came into being.
So why don't we use this as an opportunity to segue into the first chunk of what we're going to talk about today, which is snuff films. And you, out there, may not find this entirely to your taste, so we totally understand. This is your warning right now. If you're uncomfortable with this, it's a good time to back out or maybe fast forward in the future.
Just to be clear, if there were such a thing as real snuff films, that's not what we're talking about.
Right, and there is not. There is no such thing as a snuff film. And we're not going to watch graphic footage here. But we are going to, first of all, look at a trailer from a 1976 film titled Snuff that really played a key role in developing the the myth, the urban legend of the snuff film.
So this is around that time where I'd say like there's a good chunk of the 60s and early 70s where like they came up with gimmicks to try to sell people to get into horror movies, right? Like what was that one with Audrey Hepburn where like they shut the lights off and everything went black on the screen for like 10 minutes? There's stuff like that.
When was the Tingler?
The Tingler is the
where
other
they
one
shock
I'm
you
thinking
in the
about.
seat.
Yeah, and Snuff is kind of along those lines, right?
All right, see this guy here?
Yeah.
This is our Charles Manson-esque character, a very low-rent Charles Manson-esque character who shows up in this movie.
Okay. So the idea here is that this was advertised as being a legitimate snuff film, and then it was shown in theaters in the 70s, but of course it was not.
Right. So it has an interesting origin story. First of all, directed by husband and wife team Inya Johnson, who I realize now I may have mispronounced her name in the podcast episode because it's spelled Eithne, and I'm not as up on my
I
Irish
don't think you're to
spellings.
blame for that. Yeah, that's a tough one.
So Inya Johnson and Eric Schaefer, the same people behind Shriek of the Mutilated, the excellent Bigfoot movie that we covered on Trailer Talk previously.
Now, wait, is that the one where, spoiler alert for the end, it's the Scooby-Doo ending?
Yes.
Where it was a dude in a suit all along?
Yeah, but then the dudes in the suits win and slaughter everybody in
Right.
kind of a pseudo-satanic sacrifice kind of a deal.
So two things right away, I'd say. First of all, the footage that we're seeing behind us here is actually better than what I imagined in my head when you told me about this movie for the first time. Because I just thought it was going to be, just horrible, like, homemade movie type stuff. And then husband and wife team?
Yeah.
So they, like, I'm trying to imagine what, like, the dinner table banter was like while this movie was in production.
Well, I think it went basically like this.
How do
Hey,
we sell some tickets?
Yeah, basically. but more directly, it was, hey, honey, remember that movie that we shot in 1970 called Slaughter about the Manson family killers in South America? Yeah, that's the one we shot in South America, and we haven't done anything with it because it's absolutely horrible. It hasn't been released. What can we do to dump this film and make some money? And then the idea emerges, well, and this is around 1975, 76, let's shoot a new ending and then release it as Snuff. This way we'll get to, we'll get to springboard off of the urban legends and obsessions with the idea of a snuff film.
So this is sort of along the lines of what you might have seen in the marketing for the Blair Witch Project when it came out, sort of the reality marketing of movies where you take a fictional movie and you try to boost audience interest by implying that the events really took place and it's real film.
Oh, yeah, and check out...
It is real film, but film of real unsimulated events.
Yeah, and check out the tagline there. I love it. There were a few. The picture they said could never be shown. The bloodiest thing that ever happened in front of a camera. The film that could only be made in South America where life is cheap.
Wow, I bet South Americans took offense to that. I have to say, though, the actual design on this poster is pretty compelling.
Well, they put some money behind promoting it.
Yeah.
And it's... The Manson tie-in is interesting because I was not aware of this, but the idea of a snuff film came out of a book written in 1971 by Ed Sanders called The Family, the story of Charles Manson's Dune Buggy Attack Battalion, in which it mentions this. This is a true event. The Manson family. They stole a TV truck at one point, and then they kept one of the cameras, and so this idea emerged that, they were filming dead bodies and they were filming murders with this camera. Turns out there's nothing to that at all.
No, he was trying to get his film career launched. He was making audition tapes.
Yeah.
I wish more people, when they talk about Charles Manson in present day, would bring up Dune Buggy Battalion. Though.
Yeah.
Like, that
sells it.
Rings a little bit better. Like, when I'm watching Mindhunter episodes, I want Tench to turn to Holden and be like, what about that Dune Buggy Battalion? That's a really great phrase.
They show up to interview him, and the key to unlocking his willingness to participate is to bring him a Dune Buggy in
That'll
a box.
hopefully be in the second season of Mindhunter, yeah.
So this idea of the snuff film emerges, and I have to drive home again. The key here, the key to the definition of the snuff film, and the reason that there is no such thing as a snuff film, is that it would have to entail the intentional filming of a murder for commercial gain.
Right.
Not for hobbies, not because you were, say, filming a sporting event and somebody died, that sort of thing. Because as long as we've had the motion picture camera, we have had images of death and injury, etc. But this would be a case where someone said, "Hey, let's kill somebody and film it, and then we will sell it."
Now, this is kind of weird because I wonder what you guys think the psychological appeal of the idea of watching real unsimulated death on film is. Because you can watch a million movies that have simulated deaths, but I'm sure you heard the rumor when you were a kid that there's a scene in The Wizard of Oz where if you look in the background, you can see one of the extras hanging himself. Now, in fact, it was just like this funny little animal they had in the background, but it looks kind of like a silhouette of a person swinging from a rope. And there was this rumor that it was a real suicide accidentally caught on film in The Wizard of Oz, and people go nuts for it. They're like, oh, I got to find that, I got to see it. Why do people want to see unsimulated death on film so much?
We talk about this in the episode,
We do.
actually. Yeah, that there needs to be more research into something like that, but that there is a fascination with our death and subsequently witnessing other human beings' death to try to understand it, I think. So when Robert and I were growing up, the movie that was going around that was kind of our version of Snuff was Faces of Death. And this was the thing that, and Ramsey's nodding, Ramsey's about the same age, we would get VHS copies of this, and you'd sit there and you'd watch, I don't know, like I'm trying to remember some of the scenes. A lot of it was animal death, but you'd see like a Buddhist monk set himself on fire and things like that.
It was a lot of it was fake too, by the way. And I
it's
never
almost
actually,
like the worst kid you knew was really into this.
yeah, like I never actually rented them, but I remember being intimidated by them on the shelves because that's how they marketed themselves. But yeah, most of it is stock footage of things such as self-immolation of a Buddhist monk.
I believe there's a murder from Vietnam in there, stuff like that.
And then throw some staged material in there too, and some definite like cultural exploitation, and you got yourself a Faces of Death film.
The one I remember the most is the cuisine of eating monkey brains, and they actually showed like the table where they have the inside cut out, and they would close up a live monkey so its head was sitting out and show the process of all that. I found it extremely upsetting.
All right, we're back. Sorry, some technical difficulties on our end, but just to finish up with Snuff, I do want to reiterate my correction here that the film Snuff was directed by Michael and Roberta Findlay, not Inya Johnson and Eric Schaefer. The latter two there, they were the authors of a paper about the film that I read. And the final thing I want to say about Snuff is that when they took this earlier 1970s film and retitled it Snuff, they shot a sequence that airs at the very end where they pan out, they show a camera crew that's been filming the horror movie.
The fourth wall.
They break the fourth wall, and then they simulate the killing of a woman.
Is the woman that they simulate the killing of, is she one of the actresses from the former production? Okay.
Well, no, I don't know if she's in the former production. I think they brought in all new people.
Oh, okay.
But
wait a minute. So this is basically the same ending as the Holy Mountain.
Exactly. It's the Holy Mountain with a simulated murder that you're supposed to think, oh my goodness, this camera crew, they cut and then they killed this woman in order to sell the footage. And it's pretty graphic. You can watch this whole film on Amazon Prime. It's the Blue Underground cut, but it has no cover art if you're looking for it. And the last 10 minutes or so is this excruciating murder sequence. With far better gore effects than the rest of the film, but it's still very clear that it's staged because you have like these POV shots that you would not have if this were just an impromptu murder of a member of the cast.
Wow, I would love to read an oral history of the making of this movie, like how they got money for just shooting that last part. I mean, the whole movie, but just the last part. Like they convinced somebody, like, can you just give us like $5 or $10,000?
Yeah, I think it was pretty cheap. It was something in that area, and they just filmed it in a New York apartment.
That's wild.
Why would you want to simulate real murder when you could have, like, gushing leopard head nipples instead?
I know.
Joe's referring to the Holy Mountain, which we've covered on Trailer Talk before. Hey, so actually, since we went away and then we came back, let's just do a brief segue before we go to our next film. So this is Stuff to Blow Your Mind Trailer Talk. We're talking right now about our episode that published yesterday about creepypastas. If you're just tuning into this video file, there's another video file on our Facebook page that explains what this is all about. But what we'd like to know from you in the comments is, what's your favorite creepypasta? Because we want more. We want more creepypastas so that we can continue talking about them for eternity.
All right. Well, the thing about the film Snuff is it's not very fun. So let's move on to a film that concerns snuff that is fun. I'm talking about 1999's 8mm.
Oh, boy. So I think I brought this up accidentally in the episode. I have never seen it, though.
You've never seen it? Oh.
No.
Joe, have you seen this film?
No, I was confusing it with another Nicolas Cage film. I think Brian De Palma directed it, called Snake Eyes.
Yeah, different film entirely. Yeah.
But so let me see, having never seen it, let me see, based on the trailer, if I can come up with a loose summary.
Okay.
Nicolas Cage is some kind of a writer-reporter type who uncovers that snuff films are actually being made and feels ethically obligated to try to stop them.
Right, and figure out what's the story of this tape that he comes across.
But let me guess, does he secretly become obsessed with the films?
No, but there are scenes where he's like so visibly shaken by it that he's like, that he just can't handle
Nicolas
it.
Cage
He's just
googly
caging
eyes.
out. Yeah.
Wait, Catherine Keener's his wife?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So this is a film directed by Joel Schumacher,
Okay.
written by Andrew Kevin Walker of Seven, and it stars everyone. You got Nick Cage, Joaquin Phoenix, James Gandolfini, Anthony Heald, Chris Bauer as the Machine, who's sort of like the burly Gimp character of this, who's the killing machine, and then some other people in the cast
I think
too.
I just
Obviously,
saw Francis Conroy.
maybe so.
Okay.
This sounds bad.
It's bad, but let me tell you, where it gets good is the final bit of casting here, and that is the actor who plays the villain snuff film pornographer Dino Velvet.
Yeah, we talked about this in the episode itself. I think we should do an entire trailer talk about this actor. He is, of course,
Peter Stormare.
Yeah,
Stormare,
Stormare, yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's in Fargo. He's in a bunch of Coen Brothers movies. He's
in-
one of the nihilists.
He's
in
in
the Big Lebowski.
Armageddon.
Yeah. He single-handedly elevates this film, and let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Because he brings a dramatic silliness to a movie that might otherwise feel too sleazy. And granted, Nick Cage does a little bit of that himself. Sure. But his villainous performance is just so over the top and so goofy, it just constantly reminds you that, no, this is a comic book movie. You may have come into this thinking that it was going to be grittier, and it is gritty, but there's a silliness to Peter Stormare's performance that just makes it fun.
Does he play God in the movie Constantine?
He plays
No, he
the
plays
devil.
the devil.
Oh,
and he's the best
okay.
part of that film,
He is.
too.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Joe has come up with a previous formula that was based around Brian Cox.
Oh
which
yeah,
the idea-
Brian Cox. Yeah, Brian Cox. What movie without Brian Cox could not be improved by the addition of Brian
I
Cox?
think you can do the same thing with Peter Stormare.
Yeah.
He's
Basically,
amazing.
he's basically Brian Cox, but with cocaine for blood.
Yes.
And he has a tremendous death scene too. I want to throw out there. He in the script, I looked the script up online, and it doesn't seem to be in the original script. So maybe he just completely ad-libbed it. I hope so. But he ends up being shot in this sort of standoff towards the end of the film, and he says no, not like this. I need something more cinematic. Machine, kill them all. And then Chris Bauer's machine character in the Gimp mask, rushes out to kill everybody. It's fabulous.
Wow. So, all right, maybe some people are like, wait a minute, what did I just tune into here? What's going on? Why are we talking about snuff films?
Well, because it came up in our Creepypasta episode. We're talking about Creepypasta, urban legends, and in this case it was a creepypasta called The Grifter, which is essentially like a bad Ring video snuff film kind of urban legend treatment. And so, we discussed Snuff, we discussed 8mm. There are other films out there that certainly explore similar territory, but these are respectively the most important and the goofiest.
Yeah. So we are getting the full-on Nicolas Cage face acting behind us here.
So for this movie, where does it rank
Con
on the
Air.
ordered list of Nicolas Cage performances? Like if you've got Bad Lieutenant Port of Call, New Orleans at the top, and then somewhere near the bottom you got, I don't know, Not the Bees or
There it is, yeah.
or Con Air. Where, is it somewhere in the middle?
You're not
or-
including any of his good movies. What about adaptation? What about...
Wait a minute, you're not Bad Lieutenant is...
You think Bad Lieutenant's a good movie?
Bad Lieutenant Port of Call, New Orleans?
Yeah, this is the Herzog film, right?
Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
Nicolas Cage.
I would put
Nicolas Cage
adaptation
in that
higher
is
than
like...
that.
He is not just...
Raising Arizona is the best.
He's not just a bad lieutenant in that movie. He has got to be the worst lieutenant in the country.
What about Moonstruck?
I never saw
When
Moonstruck.
the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie. That's amore.
I don't know anything about it.
Well, let me just say this. He's definitely Nick Caging it in this film.
Yeah.
But he's not Nick Caging it to the extent that he outshines Dino Velvet.
Good,
So,
good. So he tempered his performance.
well, maybe, or he just didn't bring it that day, But there are great scenes of him just sort of freaking out while watching film footage, so that's good.
I just realized Peter Stormare is actually kind of a Coen Brothers regular, because he's
Yeah.
in Lebowski as well.
I was just saying that.
Yeah. Man, I think we need to do a Stormare trailer talk.
We
Somehow we
could.
got to do the science of Peter Stormare.
He's been in
Maybe we can get him
number-
in here. Bring him into the office.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
He has a pop music career.
Really?
Back in Europe. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are some wonderful stills of him like performing with like this jumpsuit on
He's
and
great.
a microphone.
Oh,
It's
he
great.
was in that techno pop band Autobahn.
Yeah, in the Lebowski film he was, yeah. And he's a musician in real life. He's a national
Fantastic.
treasure.
Yeah, Renaissance man. So, all right, we're going to move away from snuff films now, I think, right? This is our last one that's related to that. What's next?
Well, next we're going to get into another area we discussed. So this is not quite a creepypasta, but it is on an online urban legend, and that concerns an arcade video game from the early 80s called Polybius.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea here is, there's this creepy arcade machine that pops up in arcades around Portland, Oregon, in early 1980s, and it starts making people feel sick. They're getting addicted to it. They're having weird psychological or health episodes, and they are men in black coming to tend the machines, and then the machines vanish entirely.
This sounds like a good plot for Stranger Things season 3.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes out next, there'll be something wrong with the arcade machines.
Wait a second. Are we looking at The Last Starfighter
We
here?
are, yes.
Well, let me tell you guys, I am familiar with The Last Starfighter. What year did this movie come out? Was this 84?
This would have been 84, yes.
84, okay. So when I was a kid, I had a VHS tape, I think probably a second generation or third generation VHS tape of The Last Starfighter. Low quality, grainy. I loved every second of it. Victory or death. It's amazing. And it's got the old man from RoboCop, one of our favorites, and from Halloween 3, Dan O'Hurley.
Yes.
As he's some kind of alien with bumpy skin.
He is Grigg, the lizard man alien. And I was reading that he reportedly wore the costume. He wore his lizard suit home one day, driving home from set, just for giggles.
So for the audience who's never heard of The Last Starfighter, Joe, what is the basic summary of this film?
The basic premise is that this kid, what's the actor's name? The kid in the movie?
I'm not sure.
In the movie, I think the character's name is Alex. And Alex lives in a trailer park with his family, and his main recreational activity is playing the one arcade game in the entire trailer park, which is The Last Starfighter. Or wait, no,
I think it's just Starfighter.
Starfighter, yeah. And he plays the game. He gets really good at it because I guess it's all he does. And then one day he breaks the high score, and then the old guy from The Music Man shows up. It's the same actor who's in the movie adaptation of The Music Man. Harold Hill from that movie shows up as a space-based Music Man grifter, essentially, who puts the kid in his rocket car and takes him off to fight Zur and the Kodan Armada.
Yes.
Because it turns out that the arcade game is a proving ground for skill at destroying alien fighter ships.
Yeah. Basically, the idea is like if you're good enough at the game that you can subsequently become a soldier in this army.
Right. So I can see the link here because the arcade game is a plant.
I just noticed that the female character, his romance interest, is the same actress from Night of the Comet.
I believe it is. I was
okay.
looking her up earlier.
Yeah, she's
Now,
great.
The interesting thing here in regards to Polybius is that the Polybius urban legend seems to have sprung up in the 90s, and it was almost certainly produced by Kurt Kohler. In an intentional effort to drive traffic to coinop.org. This according to Stuart Brown, the man behind the Ahoy video series, if anyone's a fan. That looks into video games and all. So this movie, Last Starfighter, probably helped inspire the Polybius urban legend, along with early accounts of arcade machines making people sick or having some sort of health effects on
It's
people.
kind of similar mass hysteria stuff. You see it with each form of media when it first emerges, right?
Yeah, you know,
Animation.
arcade machines were new and they were maybe a little intimidating or scary, and the kids were involved. And then you did have situations where someone's health scare, or even in one case a death, coincided with the playing of an arcade game, as well as photosensitive epilepsy coming into play. And we discussed that at length in the podcast episode that we recorded.
Hey, are there any comments, people telling us what creepypastas we should check out, or just in general, do you all have questions for us?
Nope,
No,
nothing coming in?
it's okay. That's
All
okay. It's the Friday after Halloween. You're all recovering.
This
I
scene,
understand.
this scene is great. Robert,
Okay.
give us the transcript of this scene.
All right, this is the very end. The head bad guys are at the verge of defeat, and
I
one of
believe
them.
these are the head of the Kodan Armada.
Yes, and one of them says, "What do we do? You know, like what are we going to do now?" And he has the cyborg a little lens come out over his eye, and he just says, "We die." And then lo and behold, they die.
I forgot about those little lenses. Those are pretty cool. They reuse that in Mass Effect.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I never noticed the genesis
Do we have
between
a
Last Starfighter.
picture of Zur here with the bald head? That's
Oh, yeah.
Zur. Isn't he great?
He's pretty great. This
It'd
now
be
this
better if he was played by Brad Dourif.
this transition
Brian Cox.
this transition here though underlines one thing about the Last Starfighter. The practical effects with the makeup and for the aliens is fabulous and definitely stands up. The digital effects were great for the time, but do not hold up as well.
I agree, but I think this movie gets away with bad early digital effects better than most because it sets the scene or sets the visual tone for the movie with an 80s arcade game.
That's true,
Which
yeah.
has these like bad 3D renderings, and I think that sort of somehow makes it feel more like it's in the spirit of the arcade game when the bad CGI shows up.
Yeah.
All right, let's segue to another film that is also video game related.
Yeah,
This guy's name is Lance Guest.
Lance
Lance
Guest.
Guest,
That's
yes.
You know what? He was also in Halloween 2, the original Halloween
That's
2.
right.
He plays an orderly in the hospital where. Oh, yes, he's in Jaws the Revenge. He is in Jaws the Revenge. He plays the Brody son who doesn't get bitten in half by the shark on Christmas. And he's like a marine biologist for some reason, even though sharks killed his whole family.
He's the guy who plays Dennis Quaid?
Dennis Quaid. Yeah. He's,
Okay.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid grows up to become the younger Lance Guest.
What? Dennis Quaid
okay.
plays the same character in Jaws 3 that this guy plays in Jaws 4.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I thought there was some sort of like agent. Yeah. All right.
They didn't get
Carry
that
on.
sophisticated with the Jaws movies. All right, so what we have next is, of course, those of you out there thinking video game movies, the 1980s, you're missing a huge piece of classic art form.
That's right.
And what we're talking about is, of course, Tron.
Yeah, we have to mention Tron from 1982. This was like the key movie that drove home the idea that video games are important and playing them is not a complete waste of time.
And they might suck you in and kill you.
Exactly. This is yet another iteration of the video games might be real trope, right? So, and of course, this is really, I think, maybe this or what came first, Tron or The Wiz?
Oh, I don't know.
Probably
The Wiz?
Tron.
You
right?
mean
Wiz.
you mean like the
Isn't The Wiz the version?
Wiz, like
Oh,
the
sorry, no, I'm mixing
Wizard
the
of
Wiz
Oz?
up.
Yeah,
Whimsical?
What's the one with
Michael-
Fred Savage where he has the power glove?
That's the Wizard, right?
The
Yeah.
Wizard.
Wizard.
The Wiz. Now I'm glad you brought up The Wiz, though. A totally unrelated episode. The Wiz is amazing and so wonderfully weird. Watch The Wiz if you have not.
Somebody should make a Tron musical, I argue.
yeah.
Like, they adapt the
Well, they
story
kinda
of the
did.
original Tron with all the characters singing their predicaments.
Tron Legacy was kind of that, except for there weren't vocals to
The
the
characters
songs.
didn't sing.
Yeah.
No, wouldn't that be great? Like, I fight for the users.
This is a great movie. It ties in again to the whole idea of the Polybius creepypasta myth, and this sort of idea.
David Warner.
Yeah, David Warner's great.
Classic villain.
Basically, just trying to come to terms with like, wait a minute, what do these video games actually mean? You know? And like trying to create pop culture out of it that somehow makes sense.
How does it work? Are there tiny people in there
Yes.
making
Yeah.
the little lights move around? I assume that's how it works.
It's the homunculus theory of video games.
It is. Yeah, homunculus theory. This is the idea, and I definitely want to cover this in a future episode of Stuff to Blow Your Mind. There were all these theories about how reproduction worked, how sexual reproduction came to be. And some of them did not put a lot of emphasis on the egg, to the extent that they would say, well, there's a fully formed, tiny humanoid inside a sperm cell, and that's just it just needs a place to grow. That's all the female is providing.
That's like that Woody Allen movie. What was that? There's a Woody Allen anthology movie from the 70s where they play up that idea. Like there is actually tiny little people inside each sperm.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's an idea very amenable to sexist medieval men scholars.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Though there were ovists as well. There were the spermist and the ovist.
Yeah.
And the ovist tended to do the reverse and say that everything is the womb.
So
it's a fascinating area of study.
How do you make a baby in the Tron universe?
I think you have to have that disc, right?
Jason says, remember the movie Nightmares?
Yes, Nightmares. This actually came up because Nightmares was this kind of low-rent horror anthology film.
Oh, I think maybe I've seen this.
Yeah, Emilio Estevez plays, I can't even remember the details, but like a haunted video game.
Yeah. Vaguely remember. It's been a long time.
Interesting. Yeah, well, hey, if like Jason out there, you've got more ideas for video games come to life. In fact, the first one I thought of is a movie that's not even out yet, Jumanji 2, which is coming to a theater near you sometime soon. But so we're still coming up with movies like this. But share with us your ideas. We're going to do a couple more movies here, and then we're going to wrap it up. We're obviously talking about this week's episode on our 4th Creepypasta episode. Really kind of sad to see Halloween go, but we've got some great stuff coming up. We just recorded a 3-parter.
Yeah.
Death in one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
Oh, yeah, he does use video games against the kids, doesn't he?
That's right. Ramsey, our producer, just pointed out that there is a death in one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies where they get sucked into the video game world, and Freddy kills a victim that way.
Someone was in 3D.
Oh, yeah.
Was that 4?
I can't remember
It
which
would
one
have to be
it
3,
was.
right? So it can be Nightmare on Elm Street 3D.
I had a VHS copy of that one that I got in Singapore, but I didn't have 3D glasses, so I was watching it on my screen on TV.
6. If it was Nightmare on Elm Street 6, Freddy's dead.
That's it. It's the one where he's got the 3 little worms.
Is this where he?
And he's got the Power Glove.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they do a product plug for the Power Glove in it it's Freddy's glove with the knives, but it's the
Very
Power
similar
Glove.
to the Wizard.
Is this where he comes out of the TV to Inagata Vita, or is that a later one?
I think so.
Okay.
That sounds good, though. All right, what's next?
All right, next we have a movie that actually ties into the creepypasta that you covered.
Yeah.
Which had to do with a tower and
this one's
genetic
crazy.
hybrids.
Yeah, it's called the Tower of Babel, okay? And the idea of this creepypasta is that there's this big steel tower in the middle of nowhere, and 2 things come out of this tower. Animal-human hybrid servitors, and they run around within a mile or 2 radius of this tower and basically farm the land for resources. They mine it, they harvest it, and any animals they find, they capture and kill, and they bring back to the inside of the tower. Nobody knows what's inside this tower, but it's assumed that the tower itself is sentient, okay? One other thing that keeps coming out of this tower are these balloons that come out of the top that are made out of animal skins, and each one has a little note attached to it, and the notes basically tell you that the tower reveres humanity and loves everything about it and exists to serve humanity. So, what did we do in the Creepypasta episode? Well, we looked at the possibility, this is one of our favorite topics on the show, of hybrids between humans and other types of animals. And of course, we had to talk about the 1997 Island of Dr. Moreau film.
Yes.
Featuring Marlon Brando, Val Kilmer, and one of my favorites, David Thewlis.
And David Thewlis was the sane actor on this set, just to remind everybody.
Quick question, is this the one where Brando basically refused to read the script and had his lines delivered to him through an earpiece?
That's what I've always heard.
There's an entire documentary about the making of this movie.
Yeah.
Because it was directed by Richard Stanley, who has done some excellent films. He did the South African supernatural horror film Dust Devil, which is I'm not saying it's a great film, but it has some fantastic psychedelic sequences in it, where this sort of wandering demonic wizard dude calls dust devils out of the sand.
I don't want to get too deep into spoiler territory, but I like the parallels between the Island of Dr. Moreau and some elements of Alien Covenant.
Yeah. There is something going on there. You're right. Hey, I noticed two things that I wanted to bring up about this movie because I watched the trailer for the first time in 20 years before we came on here. First of all, Peter Cullen, who's the voice of Optimus Prime, is the guy who does the voiceover for this movie. So you've got Optimus Prime reading narration to you about this classic H.G. Wells story. It's H.G. Wells, right?
Yeah.
He wrote those,
Sounds right.
Yeah, and then the trailer still looks kind of good. Like, when I watched it, I was like, that movie looked like it could be good. But then you see the movie, and it's a disaster.
The movie's definitely fun.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Now I'm thinking, is it H.G. Wells?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty
I was
sure
thinking
it
it
is.
could have been Robert Louis Stevenson, or it could have been Jules Verne.
Okay, well, we don't have the notes in front of us here.
Never mind.
Maybe
It's H.G. Wells.
maybe somebody here knows.
Yeah, the interesting fact is that Wells wrote it as a protest to animal vivisection in scientific research.
Okay.
Which we've talked about on the show before. Yeah, so basically this posits that Dr. Moreau comes up with a way to create hybrid human and animal mixes, right? And we've talked about this on our X-Files episode before. Robert and I did an entire episode on the science behind the Human Z, the Red Frankenstein experiments that went on in Russia. It's pretty fascinating. Joe Rogan's a big fan of it. So basically the idea here is that nobody's actually done this yet. But there is a big difference between a hybrid and a chimera, and we have had lots of research that's gone into how to make human-animal chimeras, specifically pig humans, so that you insert human cells into pigs so that you can harvest human organs out of a living pig for people who need organ donation.
Now, one thing about the island here, we haven't even mentioned that Ron Perlman is in this.
No,
you know?
that's right. And Fairuza Balk. This movie's got a great cast. It looks fantastic when you watch the trailer. Seriously, the trailer, I was like, this looks way better than this movie actually is. You know, the tone of it and everything.
Oh, and you had the little guy.
Somehow I recall, believe it or not, this movie being kind of dull. It seems like that could not be true, but that's what I remember.
We should all rewatch it.
We should.
Yeah.
For Christmas.
This guy, what was the deal with this actor? Did he have progeria? Or
I
something
can't
like
remember
that?
the exact medical condition, but he
Yeah.
was an actual living human.
Yeah. And so was Marlon Brando. You know, it's hard to believe when you watch this movie, but the great Marlon Brando came to this. But yeah, so this is a pretty interesting movie, and I think it's probably, I mean, there's lots of like animal-human hybrid movies out there, but I think this is like the classic that people go to.
Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I feel like animal-human hybrids are a favorite discussion point for people who are really into conspiracy theories. Like Alex Jones does stuff about animal-human hybrids. Why does the conspiracy mindset go to animal-human hybrids so much? Is it just like a kind of a sexy, juicy, weird thing to grab people's attention with?
Well, I think the thing is that it's easy to latch on to actual, legitimate, and potentially beneficial studies into creating, well, the classic example here being, say, a pig that had human blood, so that you could use the human blood for blood donation.
Right.
So it's taking
if you've got a very shallow understanding of that, you can just kind of run with it and go, they're making pig-human hybrids.
Pig people, yeah.
Right, and it's also very easy to extrapolate from that, like that there's some violation of the ethics of humanity, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the things that we talk about in this is that in the early 2000s, I want to say, the actual stats are in the episode that we recorded, but that these scientists tried to file a patent basically saying like, no one else can create human-animal hybrids, and the reason why they wanted to do it was to say, this is now blocked. Now that we have filed this patent, no one else can go on to create this. And they were blocked from doing it because it's illegal to try to patent humanity. So there's a lot of like ethical controversy here. We talk about this in the episode. This is why in 2006 George W. Bush all of a sudden started talking about animal-human hybrids in his State of the Union speech. He was getting really concerned about the ethical quandaries of this. Yeah. So you're right. It's a real easy thing to grab onto and be like, oh my God, what are they going to violate next? You know?
Yeah, and and just the ideas. We've seen it used so many times in sci-fi, and of course the Beast Man has a rich symbology as a monster because it's the dual nature of man, etc.
All right.
Well, it's a werewolf, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we only have one film to talk to you about left. Now's the time, folks. If you've got something to say to us, if you have a question for us, please ask. We're here for you. And we're the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. You can download our latest episode about Creepypasta, all this wild stuff we've been talking about. You couldn't roll dice and come up with a combination of this weird stuff that we've been talking about. No show will combine snuff films and animal-human hybrids the way we do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, some might, but not like us.
Not like us. All right. So this is the last film, and I got to admit, the quality on this trailer isn't the best. This is a movie I remember from my childhood, and is connected to another one of the creepypastas that we cover in this episode. This is about the unkillable reptile. The unkillable reptile is this creepypasta about a reptile that's sentient and can talk and hates humanity and all living things. Okay. And its powers include an incredible ability to regenerate. It can regenerate even when up to 80% of its body is destroyed.
So the idea here is that they have to contain it, right, by essentially like putting it in an acid vat and burning it down to pudding.
Yeah, they constantly have it in this prison of hydrochloric acid. So I immediately turned to the classic film Alligator, which features a giant alligator. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this movie.
I think I have. Is this the one, it begins with a pet alligator, a loving pet alligator, flushed down the toilet.
Yep.
And then it comes
exposed
back
to nuclear waste?
Yeah, it is exposed to some kind of
What do you know?
radioactive something in the sewers. It grows to be like 30 feet long and starts climbing out of the sewers in, I think, New York, maybe Chicago, and eating people.
I saw this as a kid, for sure.
Maybe I've seen a sequel to this.
There is a sequel.
I might be mixing up sequel subtitles, but it might be called Alligator 2 River of Fear.
It's Alligator 2 The Mutation.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the second Alligator
I've seen
movie.
a different something 2 River of Fear. That might have been Octopus 2 River of Fear.
And then there's Alligator 3, they flush back. Alligator 4, I don't know. You guys will have to chime in on Alligator 4.
Alligator basically gives you the closest visual representation you'll get to the unkillable reptile from this creepypasta. It is this unkillable giant alligator that, as we see here, it's basically Jaws with feet. It goes around, it eats people on the street, it eats people in rivers. There's a scene coming up where it eats like half the party at a wedding. It's just, insatiable.
But like a bird stands on its head.
Yeah, I don't think they got that far.
Cleans its teeth.
Maybe that's in the second one. Yeah, but the general idea is that it's some kid's pet. And I think actually, like, the kid grows up and is the protagonist. And is, like, trying to stop his pet from...
Oh, man.
Here it is. Here's the wedding scene, right? Ready? This caterer just gets chomped on.
Is there a scene where like they connect, where they have this unrealistic connection? The alligator's like, Jimmy.
I don't think we get a Demodog scene like that. No. So that's Alligator. Really not that great of a movie. Trailer quality is pretty dark, but hey, we had to talk about it.
Now, here's a question. If you hold the giant alligator for this movie for a few minutes, does it affect how you gamble?
Oh, you're spoiling them for a future episode of Stuff to Blow Your Mind.
Yeah, so if you are not subscribed to our podcast and you want to find out what that's all about, you should go find us wherever you get your podcasts, on Google Play, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere. Or you can go to our website, stufftoblowyourmind.com, and hit the subscribe button. Download the latest episodes, but always subscribe so you get whatever we produce in the future.
And hey, if you pop in on this video later in this weekend after the live stream, that's totally cool. We're going to be around checking in on it. Leave us some comments, pop in, maybe join our discussion module on Facebook, where fans of the show get together, they talk about the recent episodes, and they even propose some cool topics to us that we could potentially cover.
Yes. All right. Well, I think that's it, everybody.
Look at this alligator bursting up through the street.
We're going to appreciate just the wonders of nature here. And then we're going to exit.
Yeah. All right. See you all later.
Truth is here. Out of the dark.
through the